Thank you so much for being here, guys. I want to express also my gratitude for your patience. We had problems with Facebook. We still have problems with Facebook, I think. Hold on. Have we resolved it? I see you're giving me a thumbs up. Are we up? Okay. So our Facebook Live is starting. For those who are on Facebook, I hope you can hear me, but I'll repeat this again. For those who are on Facebook, most of you who are on Facebook should have my WhatsApp number, so please WhatsApp me your questions for the people on Facebook. We also want to welcome you to the NUMSA live press conference. Now, first of all, before I proceed, I'd like to just introduce the leadership behind me. On my far right, I've got the Regional Secretary of the Eastern Cape, Comrade Mziyanda Twani. Next to him, I've got the National Treasurer of NUMSA, who is Comrade Mpumzi Maqungo. Next to him, I've got the President of NUMSA, Comrade Andrew Chirwa. And next to Comrade Andrew Chirwa is the General Secretary of NUMSA, Comrade Irvin Jim. And next to him is the Second Deputy President, Comrade Buleng Paka. And next to her is the local chairperson of UTNAG, Comrade Msimelelo Janchis, who is also the chairperson of Goodyear. Not the chairperson of Goodyear, but the local chairperson of UTNAG. Thank you so much for being here, comrade. And again, a warm welcome to the people on Facebook. I hope you have caught up to us. We are beginning the press conference. How we will handle this press conference is that let me stand here so you can see me. How we will handle the press conference is that the NUMSA General Secretary is going to read the press statement in full. Thereafter, we will open up to the journalists who are here for questions. Those journalists who are following on Facebook, can you kindly send me a WhatsApp and I will read your question out loud so that the leadership can respond. Thank you so much. We begin the press conference now. GS?
Good morning, everybody. I'm just going to read the statement. On the 15th August 2025, the National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa called on all workers at Goodyear, South Africa, who were affected by the looming closure of the plant to attend a general meeting at Goodyear, South Africa in Kariga. The purpose of the meeting was for the union to give a report back on outcomes of Section 189A consultation that took place on the 14th of August 2025. The meeting of the 14th of August 2025 took place against a backdrop of Goodyear resistance to improve the lump sum offer of workers, which was a lousy offer of 50,000 and 2 weeks for each completed year of service. The position NUMSA rejected with contempt it deserves. Whilst NUMSA strongly disagrees with Goodyear's South Africa in respect of the closure of its Kariga manufacturing plant, given that the plant is in fact quite capable of being safe, but Goodyear is not interested in doing so, in that it simply gives effect to the corporate decision of its parent company to shift all production volumes from South Africa to Europe, and as such, Goodyear South Africa is on record that it is not interested in engaging in discussion on profitability and the volumes required to reach break-even point. NUMSA accepted the objective reality that Goodyear is intent on closing its manufacturing operation at all cost. As such, NUMSA proceeded to engage with Goodyear South Africa in the formal Section 189 facilitation process relevant to appropriate severance package to be paid to workers who are now confronted with unemployment in a severely depressed economy. NUMSA succeeded in attaining a substantial improvement. My computer here is troubling me. NUMSA succeeded in attaining a substantial improvement on the grossly unfair minimum package, which Goodyear wished to impose on these workers, despite their years of loyal service. The more pertinent improvement attained were increasing severance package pay from 2 weeks remuneration completed year of service to 4 weeks remuneration for each completed year of service. In addition, Goodyear also paying each worker a lump sum of 100,000. Accordingly, settlement agreement was concluded with Goodyear on Friday, the 15th of August, which was the day when they were very firm that they are closing the plant. On the severance pay, it's broken like this: accrued leave which may be due to affected associate as at their individual effective dates, a gratuity equating to the month remuneration, a lump sum severance pay of 100,000, 4 weeks pay for each completed year of service, payment of contractual entitlement to notice lieu of notice which would otherwise be served, the 2025 accrual for bonus entitlement of associate as of 30th of September, payment of full remuneration for the month of August 2025 for these associates who are released from service of the company. All amounts referred to above is payable hourly. So all of that, payment in terms of this agreement, all payments referred will obviously be subjected to tax. Payments of the amount due will be effected upon effective date. The other issues that follow that we had to push, that they must be clear. On education fund, work security fund, it is recorded that the company set aside funds agreed upon for purposes of establishing an education fund for associate, that in addition of work security fund was established in accordance with provision of 2004 agreement. The effect was not, however, given to the establishment of educational fund or distribution of monies set aside for either education fund or the work security fund. The parties agreed that the funds set aside both for purposes of education fund and the work security fund are to be distributed equally, shared to all workers whose names appear in the list, is to be included in severance package applicable to the hourly rated workers, will be paid in accordance with consideration referred to in paragraph 9.1 and 9.2. Medical aid, the company will give effect to its obligation in respect of medical aid to those associate contractual entitled to benefit. In Goodyear, all workers who are 55 and above, when they retire, they continue to be in medical aid. Bursaries and trade examination, the company will effect payment of the following: active bursaries allocated to associates, their dependents will be met to the end of 2025 academic year. The cost of 2026 trade examination for the 5 current apprentices who undertake such examinations. That takes us to the details of the actual package on a range of service per workers. There's a breakdown there. And at the end of that breakdown, I'm summarizing that there are 552 NUMSA members at Kariga plant. Out of this number, 355 members, or about 65%, would get an average of 500,000. NUMSA members with 0 to 5 years of service will get a severance package that will take them to 234,000. 64 of NUMSA members who have 26 years of more service years will get an average package of 1 million. NUMSA also succeeded to push Goodyear to agree that 17 workers that were on fixed-term contract must also benefit from this negotiated package. 35 workers' contracts were renewed and extended by Goodyear, which is given to workers who will be working post the closure of the plant. And if you're looking at all of those numbers, the number we were grappling with in this retrenchment, included in that is the number of non-unionized who also will benefit to the package. Whilst Goodyear adamantly insisted on removing all its intellectual property, and it is also not prepared to consider donating its manufacturing facility towards an endeavor to secure an investment by government and a third party as to ensure ongoing production facility in Kariga with concomitant production of jobs, it is ultimately agreed not to dispose of its property and whatever assets fall outside of its claimed intellectual property for a period of 2 months, as to enable NUMSA to further pursue discussion with government and third parties in an attempt to save the manufacturing plant. To this effect, with the support of national government, DTIC in particular, IDC has made an expression of interest to Goodyear to take over the plant infrastructure, and both government and NUMSA, we are looking for strategic partners that can co-invest and take over the plant with an intention of saving the jobs that will be lost as a result of Goodyear closing the plant. In this regard, given the wider adverse impact Goodyear South Africa decision will have on the entire Kariga and Gqeberha communities and on the downstream industries, as well as the South African tire manufacturing sector, in terms of backward and forward linkages as a whole, NUMSA shall do everything in its power to ensure that an alternative solution is found to otherwise catastrophic impact of Goodyear South Africa and its global parent company unscrupulous decision we have on South Africa and ordinary workers. NUMSA as a union appreciate the positive response we receive from government in agreeing to work with us through a united front with NUMSA in exploring ways to save the strategic plant. This strategic plant, however, we must emphasize that Goodyear closure set a dangerous precedent in our country's history. As such, we're not only condemning this decision by Goodyear South Africa, but we also strongly urge government to take decisive measures to protect South Africa's existing manufacturing capacity, as the possibility exists that other companies in the tire sector can do the same, where they can close manufacturing and only maintain their distribution network as a mechanism to dump tires in South Africa. On what is to be done then in the bleeding manufacturing sector, we are raising sharp issues we're calling on government to act on. We're calling on government to increase tariff across automotive, tire, steel, and engineering sector, given that the National Treasury has already passed the Public Procurement Act with the goal of supporting manufacturing and industrialization. It is essential that the National Treasury must move swiftly to introduce public regulation to implement this act. This is critical if we are to use procurement as a tool to drive localization and designation through our public procurement processes. NUMSA firmly believe that government must act without hesitation to protect what remains of our manufacturing base. This can be done by imposing tariff, setting clear standards for homologation, and in particular addressing the current crisis of tire dumping, just as the state previously intervened to address the crisis of scrap sector. It must now act decisively to tackle dumping of tires and carbon black in our economy. We urge government to move quickly to ban importation of tires and carbon black into our local market. That will go a long way to protect the current existing jobs. Furthermore, government through SARS must take a strong stance against multinational companies engaging in transfer pricing and profit shifting. These practices make it easy for companies to extract money from South Africa through schemes that avoid tax, companies that benefit from government incentive schemes intended to protect and create jobs must be held accountable. In the auto sector, we also draw attention to the fact that 65% of vehicles in the local market are imported with zero local content. Given the volumes of vehicles being brought in by brands with no local manufacturing presence, and thus no contribution to quality living wage in terms of job creation, it is time for government to require that foreign brands seeking market access must be forced to establish plants in South Africa and employ local workers to manufacture vehicles and components. NUMSA position, which we raised at the recent NACAM show in Gqeberha, is based on evidence and industry modeling that when we initially introduced the master plan in 2018, our analysis showed that even a 5% increase on localization could translate into 30 billion new component production opportunities. Yet instead of seizing these opportunities, we are now scrambling to replace lost export markets such as the 4 billion export market to USA. Government should therefore attach tighter condition to the incentive it provides, making increased local content a non-negotiable step towards the 60% localization target, which we're supposed to get to by 2035. NUMSA calls on the National Treasury to move swiftly and review the ad valorem tax levels with an intention to ban it, as it has remained unchanged for over 25 years, militating against growth in the domestic market in the transition from combustion engine to electric vehicles. Such a decision will go a long way in growing South African market, as more people will buy more cars without this unnecessary taxation. NUMSA calls on government to act urgently in the steel sector to support the primary steel production, particularly AMSA. Increased production volumes are essential to lowering cost per ton, which requires curbing imports, either through banning, which is not viable option, or implement anti-dumping measures. Between July 2024 and January 2025, 1.4 million tons of steel were imported, and while a 9% safeguard was in place, importers claim refunds from SARS and profited from previously sold stock. Companies like Max Steel are retrenching not less than 300 workers now as we speak, and companies which imported less, like Allied Steel, which imported nothing, have received a raw deal in this arrangement. They bear the brunt of policy failure, declining demand, worsened by cheap imports, which have triggered a job loss bloodbath in terms of retrenchment. As a result, manufacturing sector is confronted by retrenchment and plant closures. Politically and ideologically, NUMSA is clear, and we have never shied away from challenging government when decisions negatively affect the economy, workers, or country as a whole. However, our stance has never been to provoke conflict for its own sake. Our position is rooted in realities faced by workers. At this moment, what is needed is unity behind a transformative agenda, one that prioritizes strong industrial policy and inclusive manufacturing-driven economic growth. Only through this approach can we truly shift power relation and build a non-racial, non-sexist democracy where all South Africans, black and white, have fair access to land and employment. This is fundamental to address the ongoing challenges of poverty, unemployment, and inequalities. We hope not to be misunderstood, but the facts remain. The country has been led into a state of collapse by the neoliberal agenda and Washington consensus. These same policies are the reason why figures like Trump are imposing tariffs globally without a coherent industrial strategy, plunging American workers into poverty, unemployment, and inequalities. It is this neoliberal agenda, together with austerity measures, that has driven deindustrialization in both the United States and South Africa, fueled by misguided notion that the state has no business in business, whilst hollowing out the role of the state, ceding development to market. This is at the root of the consistent collapse of all our state-owned enterprises, such as Eskom, Transnet, SAA, Post Office, Denel, AMSA. The threat to the entire manufacturing sector is clear. Given the critical role the primary steel is driving in terms of industrialization, if the country truly understood what is at stake, the power crisis in May, which was rolling blackouts, when ESCOM rolling blackouts should have been a wake-up call, should not be dismissed. The fixation on renewables did not just destabilize our grid, it also brought down Spain grid, proving that there is no immediate substitute for reliable, dispatchable sources of energy. If we're serious about championing industrialization and manufacturing, we must fix ESCOM and immediately reconnect all 17 generating units that were disconnected at Komati, Grootfontein, and Rena coal power station to restore back reliability of electricity supply. At the same time, Transnet must move with speed to restore our rail network so that it is on the cutting edges to move raw material and finished products to market. There is no replacement for government to take ownership and control of all our country's commanding heights, all our minerals, to beneficiate them, to build new sectors at the back of them, to drive manufacturing and industrialization and build an inclusive economy. This press conference has been called not only to inform the public and our members about the latest development regarding the closure of Goodyear plant, but also to address the broader risk confronting South African manufacturing sector. The decision by Goodyear and its parent company to close Gariga plant is a direct blow to workers, their families, and the local community of Gqeberha and Gariga, but it also threatens the future manufacturing in our country. NUMSA want to make it clear that we will continue to do everything within our power in partnership with government and strategic stakeholders to secure a sustainable solution that protects jobs and safeguards the future of that plant. NUMSA stands firmly with workers, remains committed to defend their rights, and will continue to demand accountability at every level. We demand that industrialization, job creation, and economic justice remain at the center of the national policy decision. The risk of deindustrialization is no longer a distant threat. It is a reality we are already facing, made worse by rising unemployment, economic hardship for workers. We call on government to act with agency and determination to develop and implement an industrial strategy that not only prevents further disinvestment, but actively supports recovery and growth of the manufacturing sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, GS, for that. Once again, I just want to welcome everybody to the Goodyear South Africa press conference, which is being held by the National Union of Workers of South Africa. That's just for those people who are on Facebook who have joined us. Thank you for that. And just a reminder to the people on Facebook to please WhatsApp me your questions. Thank you so much. Now that the GS has given the press statement, has read the press statement, can I open questions to the floor? Please can you mention your name and media house before you ask a question? Thank you. Yes, Henry?
Business Day. JS, with regards to the 2-month grace period that Goodyear has given you, what happens if no deal has been received in that time frame? Are you going to throw up your hands and walk away, or will you seek an extension? And with regards to the support that you said the trade and industry, the competition is providing you, what kind of support is that? Is it financial? If it's financial, how much we're talking about? Thank you.
Thank you. Did you get that, Jess? Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
Sorry to Mr. Jim as well. What I wanted to find out, you're obviously trying to get a 2-month grace period to try and find another investor in Gqeberha. And we all know, I'm actually from Gqeberha myself. I grew up there. VW and Goodyear and Hella basically that's why the town exists. Are there any potential manufacturers that could actually come in? Have you guys had any kind of progress there? Any color on that would be great. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. you, and then you, sister. Name and media house, please.
Katlaholo Oti from the SABC. Mine is also just an understanding of what happens in the 2 months. What would be the process that would unfold in this 2 months, expectations. But again, you're saying that, you know, as NUMSA, you're doing everything, or you'll do everything in your power to ensure that an alternative solution is found to what would be happening there in the community. Maybe this would go to Mr. Z, that can give us a sense of the impact on the ground. What are the workers saying? Have you engaged with some of them? And more than anything else, what would be their mental well-being, looking at what would be unfolding right now?
Thank you. My sister.
It's just a follow-up on Katlaho's question. It's just on NUMSA says it's looking at solutions to help mitigate the impact of the job losses within the community. Just maybe paint a picture as to what solutions we're looking at. And also just on the manufacturing and the introduction of trans tariffs within the country, just maybe from the union side, we do know that there's an expectation that we are going to see massive job losses because of it. Just what is NUMSA doing just to help safeguard your workers from that impact of price?
Thank you so much. I'll allow the NOBs to respond. Cheers. Perhaps you can take some of that.
I think on the first question, the point that we must explain is that our first step together with DTIC and IDC has been to say to Goodyear, in fact, IDC has now, as a result of our engagement, made an expression of interest offer to buy the plant. And together with them, we are in a search for a strategic partner that can co-invest with us. Reasons why? It's because Goodyear was very upfront that they will not allow anybody to use their IP, their technology, to continue to manufacture tires. Are there any other interested parties? We started locally with the local brands that are manufacturing tires. We knocked at their doors. They were obviously, all of them feel that they are under strain, and therefore to take a burden of starting another plant whilst they are fighting for survival. And which lends us to the challenge that confront us both in tires and in carbon black. And for instance, there is dumping of tires. ITEC has been responsive. They did, when we did the lobbying to put up tariffs to protect the local market, they did put up tariffs, but we continue to experience leakages of tires that are coming from Vietnam, Cambodia, India, and China that still find their way into our local market. The concrete proposition we're putting on the table now, which is a boxing we shall do with government, is that just like we did in scrap a couple of years back, we lobbied DTIC and said impose a complete ban on importation of tires into the local market. And therefore SARS as well need to be tightening screws around customs and exiles to make sure that what comes in is properly monitored in our ports, that there are no tires that are not manufactured local that find their way into our own market. But also, government would also have to be critical because also the manufacturing tire companies are not immune from dumping. They will find excuses to say for this particular brands of tires, for this particular luxurious cars, we can't manufacture them locally. We must import because in terms of economics of scales, it doesn't make sense to invest on molds that are manufacturing those tires. And therefore we're saying government must be watertight because the very companies are basically beneficiaries of government incentives as they manufacture locally. Are there, therefore, strategic partners? Yes, there are. There is one strategic partner that we're talking to. I'm not at liberty to to reveal that. But together with IDC and government, we will be visiting and engaging that strategic partner who is open to engagement. We think that we should be able to win that, but we're open. We're looking for any strategic partners that can come with a particular technology for tires. But if we are to survive, both to protect existing tire companies, government need to take these measures I'm talking about, of tightening tariffs, of imposing a ban when it comes to carbon and allowing tires that are not manufactured locally. But the problem is not just tires. I already said 65% of imported cars, cars in our market are not manufactured here. So we're saying it's about time that government on those brands, we've got a crisis of jobs here. You can't be dumping we can't be allowing 65% of complete finished built cars into our local market. Those brands must basically set up plants here and assemble, and we can be very clear also, there's nothing stopping us to say you can't bring cars here that have got tires. If you're bringing cars, you must source tires locally. So it's a question of what appear to be small decision that will be able to create jobs, and therefore we need government that is going to be decisive, that include monitoring these multinationals. I mean, I can tell you with Goodyear, we have seen money being removed out of this country every year in what we regard as transfer pricing. We will be knocking at SARS to say they've got more capacity than us. They must check whether those kind of trends of money that have left the country being committed by Goodyear, which has got a very notorious position. Goodyear is closing a plant here, but is not closing its distribution infrastructure. What does that mean? It means they are going to dump tires. It means they still market in South Africa. And we're saying government must not allow them to do that. Government must take measures that ensure that tires that are manufactured, that are being sold in our market, are actually creating jobs here. They must be manufactured locally. So there's an issue around training, which I think, what are we going to do? We have organized that workers must be cancelled. In this agreement, we're also saying that workers must be given skills, money must be made available for workers who want to further their studies, who are already studying to complete their studies, but there must be training schemes that are created and platform for these workers to be reskilled so that they can be absorbed back in the labor market. Comrade Mzee, there was a question about what you think is this devastation to workers.
Look, workers are completely unhappy because everybody will understand that psychologically they are affected. And that is all over even to communities. The entire community of Goodyear is unhappy.
Can I ask that you start again, Leader? Apologies, we are live and they can't hear.
Okay, sorry. Now, I was saying the state of workers, mentally they are affected because psychologically they have been affected by the decision taken by their management. They are unhappy about their former management and their decision. To an extent that they are unhappy, the entire community of Goodyear is unhappy about this decision. Their only hope is this leadership and government turning the corner in terms of reopening the plant and get their jobs back. Thanks.
Are you sufficiently covered? Okay. There are some questions. I'm just going to bring the mic back. There are some questions that I have from journalists on the Facebook page, if you'll just allow me to quickly read them. So let me just quickly start with Mzee, who's from Workers World Media. His question is from Ilicha News, sorry. His question, Comrade Jess, is, has the union considered being a strategic partner to DTIC government or government to run the operation? So his question is more specific in terms of, is NUMSA a strategic partner as well? And then the other questions I have are from Nobile Rula of Reuters. Her question is on auto. Are there any engagements so far with Mercedes? Are they keeping jobs or looking to divert cars to other markets? And have they reopened after the temporary suspension? You remember there was that suspension? How concerned are you for workers at Mercedes? That's the question on from Reuters. And then from a News Corp in the Western Cape, journalist Goodyear, he's asking, is NUMSA engaging with government regarding concerns about closures of businesses like Goodyear? I think we've answered that, but perhaps just if you can answer that again. What are NUMSA's suggestions on how South Africa can protect itself from the US tariffs? Thank you. Those are the questions from Facebook.
Well, I think on Mercedes-Benz, we all know that among the 7 OEMs, Mercedes-Benz is the one affected the most, and BMW. I think BMW in the recent past has been looking at diversification. I think they have secured some market in Canada now, and Mercedes-Benz cannot wait. Obviously, there's a big debate about what is the percentage of a tariff that will make South Africa and still continue to see the American market as the market for South Africa. And everybody, I think there's a consensus that between 10 and 15, which is what EU has been able to achieve. But our attitude is that we shouldn't follow EU. Government should not just be volunteering ourselves to Trump. I mean, we have witnessed in EU where Trump basically will be sending their finished product to the European Union free of any form of tariffs, and yet they are going to be spending 600 billion, 700 billion in buying their energy, in doing business with US and so forth. So our attitude is that we should be negotiating, and our starting point is that we are a very serious market for US, just like they see us as a trading partner. We must actually, as South Africa and as the African continent, be very firm and hard in what is in the best interest of our country. I mean, we have seen China as we speak. China is on 90 days of no tariffs with US now. That was announced last week. And it is a result of China taking a very firm stance. When they think that they are going to impose tariffs, China doubled the number of tariffs they say they are going to impose against them. The fact that they can go back to them now and say there's 90 days grace and so forth, it means the decisions of Trump are basically hurting the American economy. And I think we should not be looking at ourselves as juniors in this particular front. Trade is reciprocal. That's what Trump actually tactic he imposed and he used on tariffs. So Mercedes-Benz would have to find alternatives, and we would have to fight, all of us, to make sure that that plant does not close. There was a question from Mzi that says, are we considering to partner? Yes, moments like this are moments for workers in our view. With the involvement of IDC, we have engaged with them. Whenever there's a deal where, if we were to have a successful deal to save that plant, it means workers of Goodyear would also have to have a stake if IDC get to be involved. It can't be that they are going to save a plant only for strategic partners to get involved and workers are left out. And yes, NUMSA will be part of those particular engagement to look as to what is the viable option. That includes opening up opportunities to individuals who can invest. But clearly with IDC being involved, workers would have a share if we succeed to turn around the plant.
Okay, this is the final round of questions. Once again, I see you. You can stand and give your question, please, and then your next.
Nick Wilson here again from News 24. I obviously don't want to put words in your mouth, Mr. Jim, but from what you're saying, and what I think you're saying, is that maybe South Africa is treating America with kid gloves, and we should actually be playing hardball. That we almost sort of riding over on our backs in a sense. maybe a harder approach to negotiations? Is that what you're suggesting?
I'm not mincing my words. I'm just saying trade is reciprocal. I think that we add a lot of value in the American economy. And this thing that we must just collapse and that they must do as they wish on us, we think that we're part of BRICS, we're part of trade with US, we've been part of AGOA. That has been benefiting the United States of America. Whether you start from agriculture and everything else, South Africa add value to the United States. And I'm saying we can't just ask Trump, which side do you want to hit us? You want to hit us this side, we're also going to give you this side. I'm saying we must go for tough negotiations. Yes, there's no doubt America is strategic for the South African economy. We've been doing business. We're not naive of that. But it can be that it will be at all cost. We're saying we need to be aggressive and negotiate. And we also need to build peoples-to-peoples relations. NUMSA, UAW, and progressive people of the United States. We must be able to engage and say this tariff approach of Trump is a disadvantage to the working class in America because it's not linked to any vibrant industrial strategy. It is just importing for them inflationary pressures, just like it's create problems for us.
All right, thank you. Katlego?
Again from the SABC. I'm just worried around the issues of the job losses and just your interpretation of what could be happening in terms of your membership base. The losses of these jobs, does this come through to affect your membership in terms of those that have lost their numbers here? Because we know that the contributions would come through from the members, and if there are no workers there in these companies, then it eats into the base. And would this then be the case for various of the sectors as well, looking at the economy that we are navigating right now? Have you picked up somewhat of a downward spiral where the jobs are being lost at scale? And also the other one would be on the national dialogue, just getting a sense of where you find yourself as those in labor right now. SABC, for instance, they released a statement saying that they are boycotting the process and that it does not actually, they're comfortable with it, carrying out in its shape in terms of the national convention over the weekend. What then would be the position of you as NUMSA right now, looking at the fact that we do have this process that has started in the past weekend? What would be your position around the national dialogue?
Well, I think the issue of job losses is our daily challenge. We are confronted by a national catastrophe of a job loss bloodbath. Max Steel is retrenching 300 workers. Workers at Goodyear, the whole plant is gone. We're talking about roughly 707 workers who would have lost their jobs now. Is it 707? Yeah. So what I'm saying is that if you go to the component sector, we also have been experiencing plant closures, small, medium-sized companies. The entire steel sector is bleeding. When the surcharge was not renewed by government between February to April, who was the beneficiary? The beneficiary were those in the steel sector who are dumping into the local market because they can go to SARS and cash in and do everything else. But for those who were loyal to drive localization inside the country, in the steel industry, it was a raw deal for them. That is why we are very firm in our demand. And if you listen to our demand, if government were to address these issues, there's no need for national dialogue. If the National Treasury were to introduce regulations that are using public procurement as a tool to drive localization, where we say to national government, provincial government, municipalities, that you will not procure what we can manufacture in South Africa outside this particular country. If we're to send that message to all our SOEs, that you will buy all the products you need locally, that will go a long way to drive manufacturing and industrialization. And I'm saying when in 2018, the Master Plan Vision 2035 was introduced, we had a target to reach 60% localization by 2035. We are hovering between 38 and 40. That's why we're saying we just need government to be decisive, to say you are going to, you're accessing incentives from government, 10% of that must be focusing on driving localization. And I gave a figure that if you improve by 5%, you will be creating opportunities to the value of about 30 billion. And that's job creation. But we shouldn't pretend that, in fact, anyone who's in government, we should not pretend that we are in this deindustrialization. I mean, I've watched over the weekend. We were not invited to any national dialogue. I'm not necessarily complaining. But what I saw over the weekend, people use those platforms to vent out the fact that they are frustrated, the unemployment. We are in a state of collapse in the country. Reasons are very simple as a manufacturing union from where we stand. We are deindustrializing, we have been deindustrializing. We failed as the South African government to do one simple thing, just to say manufacturing and industrialization matters. That there is no replacement for building productive capacities. When we allow capital outflows, both legally and illegally, which affected negatively our fixed capital, and that there's now no investment in our economy, is as a result of white monopoly capital having taken money out of this country. In fact, as NUMSA, we're busy with a study, which we will announce at some point, of since 1996, how much money, in fact, stealing, that has left this country. This is money we needed to be invested in productive sectors of the economy. As a union, we have insisted, which is what I'm raising in the statement, that government must take ownership and control of all commanding heights, of all its minerals, beneficiate them, diversify them, build new sectors. Why are we exporting jobs, for instance, to China? If you go to chrome, ferrochrome, or we're exporting jobs to China. All our smelters, as we speak, are mothballed. And by simply just banning exportation of chrome ore, all our smelters will reopen. By simply giving to manufacturing a competitive electricity tariff, which is cheap. I don't know who built ISCO. Who built ISCO? Van der Bay. Van der Bay was not smoking dagga when he built Eskom, when he built ISCO, which is ArcelorMittal. He understood the strategic importance of making sure that we deliver a competitive electricity tariff to drive manufacturing, to drive industrialization. And I think people now should wake up that the hype about renewables, and please, I should not be misunderstood, we are not dinosaurs. We understand that we must move from fossil fuels to renewables, but that must happen at a pace and at a cost our country can afford. You also cannot buy meat with a torch. And we know this. The issue of reliability on wind and the sun is a problem, and therefore we cannot avoid in our energy mix to have dispatchable sources of energy. We need nuclear, we need coal, we need gas, and we must do everything else to still execute renewables so that we are not standing still around fossil fuels. But that's what we need to do to protect the current capacity. And people who said Spain, for instance, was a miracle, in May, we saw how embarrassed was that country. And we saw Germany, as we speak, they've reopened all their coal power stations. They are back to reliable sources of energy. And therefore, we're saying we need an energy mix that can guarantee our economy, both to power the economy and to power our communities with an affordable electricity tariff. For me, that does not need a national dialogue. That just needs leadership that is prepared to act, that is taking decisions that are placing this country in a new terrain, breaking new ground to turn around the era of the 3 decades of deindustrializing the country. That can be done. If we don't do that, we're busy with dialogue. Within no time, people are going to rise against the status quo. And that's why we're saying to National Treasury, fast track the regulations so that public procurement must basically be about to create jobs. Avoraram tax is a luxurious tax that has been there for 25 years. Basically, it militates against you wanting to buy a car. We're saying it must be scrapped. If you do that, there will be more people who will buy cars, and that will generate demand. But also, government must move away from austerity. It must go to an expansionary budget. It must spend on infrastructure. If you spend on infrastructure in the steel sector, you will stimulate economic growth and across the rest of sectors of the economy. I see. Oh, you were asking question about revenue and membership. Now, we are a union that is bleeding currently. There's no doubt with retrenchment. Remember, as a union, that's what I was telling Goodyear workers. I was saying, as a union, we negotiated for those workers. We were there for them when things were good, but we also perish with workers. That's NUMSA. We are a worker-controlled union. We take mandate from workers. We negotiate. We fought that plant must not be closed. We have improved the packages against the will of the bosses who just wanted to pay them 50,000 and so forth. But to lose 707 workers just like that, they are gone. And which means the union must go back to hard work. We must effectively represent workers where we still got members. We must go back to recruitment. We must make sure that the union grows. So there's no standing still. We must work 24/7 to grow the union by recruiting members, by effectively recruiting and representing them. Workers do not join the union because Ivan Jim is the general secretary. They don't care. They want a union that effectively addresses their problem and their plight. The task we have now in Goodyear is to do everything that plant must be reopened so that those workers can be re-employed and the community of Utnik is not condemned to perpetual poverty, unemployment, and inequality. That's a noble task we must work on 24/7 now.
All right. Thank you very much. I also want to thank the journalists on Facebook. Thank you so much for joining us. I think that wraps up our session today. And those of you who have other questions, of course, you will find me on WhatsApp and I will respond. So I just want to thank everybody for attending the press conference. I also want to thank the journalists for being here physically. Thank you so much. And of course, I want to thank the leadership, regional and local, for being here today. Thank you. My name is Pagamile Fugmanjola. I'm the NUMSA National Spokesperson. Have a good day, everybody. Thank you.
Siyabonga. Sinemithi ngo-2. Yes, Eskom, yes.
You were live on the
Throughout.
Everything, what I deliver. I don't know when you're coming. Hey.
Nobody, siyabonga.
Bonga thina, please.
Oh, ifi.